Good afternoon, and for some, good morning. Welcome to Healing Forward, an intergenerational conversation on the wealth of Black health in recognition of Black History Month and Heart Health Month. Again, welcome. I am Pamela Garman Johnson, National Executive Director for the National Hypertension Control Initiative and VP of Health Equity and National Partnerships at the American Heart Association. My team and I are honored that you've taken the time to join us here today as we put healing at the center of our community conversation. We hope that you will enjoy the discussion over the next hour with this truly inspiring and dynamic group of speakers, that you'll join us on our collective work of supporting and advancing health equity and blood pressure management in communities across the country. So we want you to do a few things. One, head over to heart.org/HBP control for more information about the National Hypertension Control Initiative. So that's one thing. Two, we want to hear from you. So use the chat box. Tell us where you're hailing from today. We see people from both coasts on the webinar thus far. Also, when you go to our website, again, that's heart.org/HBP control, you'll find resources to support your personal health and wellness journeys, and also resources to help support community health empowerment. You can do the following. You can email us at nhci@heart.org to learn more and get involved. Again, that's nhci@heart.org. Now, I'd like to introduce you to our extraordinary moderator for the day, Ekemini Yuan. She is amazing. Ekemini is a theologian, an author, a co-host of the award-winning podcast, Truth's Table, and the podcast, Get in the World with Truth's Table. She is also a 2021 member of the Aspen Institute's Racial Justice and Religion Commission. Welcome, Ekemini.
Thank you for having me, Pamela. Thank you for that warm introduction, and happy Black History Month, everybody. I'm so excited to be here to dig into this very important topic about hypertension, which I know that it has impacted many of us, right? And it's very personal because hypertension has impacted both sides of my family. So I want us to take away the fact that healing is so important for us as a community, and we have to keep it top of mind as we deal with some of the historical inequities we've faced as a people. We must acknowledge the past as we move forward, but healing has to be a part of our process. And I love the conversation we're about to have to learn about how we can heal forward and what that means.
Oh, you are spot on, Ekemini. I am excited about today's conversation. You know, healing has to be at the center of this conversation, and we have to be okay with seeking guidance and help as a part of that healing process. So I'm going to hand it over to you to get us started. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Pamela, and welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today and taking charge of your health and exercising your agency. We don't ever want that to get lost in this conversation. We are grateful that you have taken the time to join us, and please make sure that you talk to us, okay? I want to see that chat on fire today. So join us in the conversation. Use that chat. You can talk back to us. Talk about what's resonating with you, and I'll try to pull in some commentary if I can, all right? And we will also be using the poll function in Zoom. So to use the poll function, move your mouse toward the bottom of your Zoom screen, okay? Just scroll down there, and the poll will come up, and we'll let you know when it's time to use it, because we have some questions for you all, and we want to get your feedback and your response. Finally, we are here to talk about the wealth of Black health. If you want to find more resources related to blood pressure, head to heart.org/HBP control for resources, including videos, downloads, and more. That's heart.org HBP Control for Resources, where you'll get videos, downloads, and much more. So let's get to our panelists. I am really excited to introduce you to this stellar group of health and wellness luminaries, okay? Our first panelist hails from Baltimore, Maryland. Be more in the house. Mr. Danny Bellamy is the CEO of Total Healthcare Incorporated, a federally qualified health center funded by the Health Resources and Services Administration and is part of the National Hypertension Control Initiative. He has more than 30 years of experience in developing and implementing health and wellness programs for communities tackling chronic health conditions through various partnerships. In his role at Total Healthcare Inc., he works with an experienced team of healthcare providers, support staff, and community-based organizations to ensure access to healthcare services in the Baltimore, Maryland area. Welcome, Mr. Bellamy.
Thank you, Ekemini. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
It's great to be with you as well. And we also have Dr. Nicolette Martin here. She is our next panelist, and Dr. Martin is the National Director for Health and Human Services of the Links Incorporated, one of the organizations working with the National Hypertension Control Initiative to address high blood pressure in communities across the country. Welcome, Dr. Martin.
Thank you so much for the invitation.
We're glad to have you. Now, you may recognize our next panelist. Bishop Reed is here to share share more about his extensive work in the community to advance health and healing, but also some of his personal health journey. Bishop Reed serves as the presiding bishop for the AME Church, 11th Episcopal District, and has been a key force empowering others to make a change and share knowledge over more than 30 years in this work, in television and other mediums to spread the good news. Welcome, Bishop Reed.
Welcome, and thank you, Ekemini.
Oh, we are glad to have you, Bishop Reed. And of course, last but certainly not least, I have the pleasure of introducing to you Dr. Janiece Williams, affectionately called Dr. G. Through her work, Dr. G has applied a multidisciplinary approach that spans law practice, business leadership, academia, the pastorate, and executive level board leadership. Dr. G also has focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion within her work, helping to create change in and through systems around her. Along with her extensive work in community, she currently serves as the pastor for Coppin Memorial AME Church in Chicago, Illinois. Welcome, Dr. G.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Oh, yes, we are so glad that you are here. I'm so glad that you all are here. Well, you know, as we begin, I would like to reset and reframe. Let's get ready. Let's get everyone to know that health and wellness, it is a journey, right? And sometimes when we think about a journey, we think about it linearly. But we know that reality says otherwise. We know that the journeys often inevitably have highs and lows, right? Sometimes we're turned all the way around. Sometimes we're turned inside and out. We go up and we go down, correct? But we want you all to keep in mind that along the way, our knowledge, resources, and access will ideally evolve, allowing us to step into more bountiful and joyful areas of health. So let's all step into this journey together today on how we can learn from the experiences of others and expand our wellness experience for ourselves and our community, okay? Now, Dr. Martin, let's start with you. Can you tell us about your health and wellness journey? We'd love to know about what you saw growing up, what ultimately called you to become a champion for health and wellness in the community.
And that's pretty much meat and potatoes land. But my mother was really big into vegetables. So I grew up liking vegetables as well as fruits. I had to drink carrot juice every morning with breakfast. And I think she even drank it when she was pregnant. As the years went by, I was very athletic, and I just noticed that different foods made me feel differently. I was never a star or an Olympian, but I just like to exercise, and it's always been part of my life. And so over the years, I've sort of cut out things that haven't made me feel good, whether it was, especially, you need energy to work out, you need energy in medical school, you need energy to work. And so those things have just sort of continued throughout my life. And I've sort of landed at the pescatarian / Mediterranean diet type person. And that's really what makes me feel the best. And so that's what I've continued.
Thank you for sharing that with us, Dr. Martin. You know, I've been known to be a flexitarian, sometimes pescatarian, sometimes I like a little beef here and there, but you know. So, oh, Dr. G, please tell us about your journey to health and wellness. Was there one light bulb moment or aha moment that made you want to become an advocate for health? Or were there a series of moments and events along the way that led you to want to be more intentional about health and wellness?
It's definitely several moments along my life, but I'd say the starting point was I've always been a believer that my body is a temple. And so if my body is a temple, if I take care of it, it will take care of me. Alongside that, my mom made sure that we had a balanced diet growing up. So that became a part of who I am. And I've always been interested in research. And so I spent a lot of time being the one among my friends who would do the research on what's healthy, what's not healthy, and share that with my community. And I'd say the last thing is that I've seen so many people over my lifetime live to eat rather than eat to live. And when you eat to live, you figure out you don't need near as much as you thought you did when you had the other mindset. So those are the things that turn light bulbs on in my life.
Wow, that's powerful. I love the communal aspect, right? Of you gathering the information and then disseminating it to your community. So powerful and so important. Thank you for that, Dr. G. You know, I'd love to go to you, Bishop Reed. You know, I'd love to get your perspective on your health and wellness journey. As someone who has experienced a heart event before, when did the moment or moments happen for you?
The moment happened for me, Kimini, when I had to have a kidney transplant. My father, my grandfather, my uncle all died of hypertension related illnesses, heart attack, stroke. And I thought I could handle it after my heart surgery, but I discovered that when you have heart problems, it also, you need to check your blood pressure on a daily basis. That became my wake-up call 3 or 4 years ago.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. And I'm so sorry for your losses, Bishop Reed. My goodness. You know, Mr. Bellamy, well, I'd love to hear from you as well. As the leader of a community health center, what prompted you to want to lead in the space of health and wellness? Was it something that you saw at a wider community level? What inspired you?
It was a series of events. Growing up in a family of where my parents raised 13 children, and I admire them for being able to do that. The other aspect of it was working in a variety of healthcare settings, from hospitals to home health agencies and nursing homes, and seeing people move into the community in ways where it became apparent that while they had health challenges, there was a lot of disenfranchisement that was going on in the community. There were public policies that really impacted their ability to take full advantage of a health and wellness environment. And so looking at that, I started to think about ways that I could contribute. And so as a part of that, that's how I came to be in the management section of healthcare delivery. But federally qualified health centers, of which I'm a part of now, has been the greatest experience ever. It's really where the rubber meets the road. It's a talented group of healthcare professionals and support staff that really get into the social determinants of health along with care delivery. They really look at the community. They work with the community in a way that really brings about better health outcomes. But at the same time, we are governed by a board of directors that's also has a a real footprint in the community. Our board of directors is made up of 51% of the board members receive their health care through our center. And so as a part of that, we get direction from the community on how we go about the delivery of care.
That is wonderful and really powerful just to hear just the impact of the health center in that community, right? And I love that you lifted up some of the external factors, you know, that also go into how hypertension impacts our community. It's not just, you know, sometimes people want to think it's all individualistic and what you ate or your bad diet. No, sometimes there are real policies, right, and legislation that actually impacts our lives. And so there's a convergence of issues and factors that impact our health outcomes. So thank you so much for your work, Mr. Bellamy.
Thank you.
Yeah, it matters. It really does. And so, and of course, I want to thank you all for your responses here and sharing just a bit of your own story and your journeys with us. We have to know what's driving and motivating us to stay on course to our larger journey. And knowing that we can do this together, the sense of purpose and motivation for community health gathered here is inspiring. And particularly when we think about Black History Month, it's about our collective ability to not only just overcome, but to thrive, right? And so I think in the spirit, in that collective spirit, I think it's time for us to go to our poll question. So it's not just about us talking to you, but we want the audience to talk back to us and answer a question, if you don't mind. So now, poll question number 1. Does your community support a healthy lifestyle? Yes, somewhat, no. Now be honest. Right. I'm looking forward to seeing these results here. Okay. Still have a few more seconds.
The results are in for poll question 1. The question was, does your community support a healthy lifestyle? 34% responded yes, 54% responded somewhat, and 12% responded no. Thank you for your participation, and I'll pass it back to you, Ekemini.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So thank you all, for your honest responses. And so it's sort of, I mean, it was not, it was kind of spread a bit evenly, but more so somewhat, right? So somewhere in the middle that maybe, sometimes yes, maybe sometimes no, on whether your community supports a healthy lifestyle. And that's okay. We're going to learn more about the importance of that, right? So first, if you have been using the chat, please do so and get in. Continue, to use that chat function and talk to us. I see you all have been responding to what we've been saying here, which is good. Second, it's now let's see here. Oh, so I want to continue the conversation here, okay? And so I want our panelists to speak for a moment about healthy neighborhoods, okay, and what they see as a vision. It leads to the idea of community cooperation. Many resources are coming together to make work and make it look viable for us. And so I want us to understand the importance of having healthy communities and what that looks like. So let's provide some more context, right, to that first question. Okay, so I want to thank everybody for participating in that. Historically, Black communities have faced numerous challenges that have led to inequities that we still continue to see in our communities today, okay? These inequities present themselves in a number of ways, including social determinants of health that run through the daily patterns of many communities. But before we get to our panelists, I want to first define what a social determinant of health is so that we can all be on one accord, okay? It is one of the topics we are here to discuss today. And while we may have heard it spoken or alluded to earlier, let's ensure that we have a base level understanding of what it actually means and its implications for us, okay? So often as a community, we are living in realities that are tough, right? We are still in the midst of a pandemic, okay? But we've been taught to endure. So for many of us, that's all we know to do is, right, is just to go through, to get through. And it has become our normal way of life. And so we're living in the reality of weathering, okay? And weathering is when we experience prolonged discrimination, marginalization, and those effects, they weather our bodies. Our body keeps the score, if you will. And so while our challenges may look different from the generation before, many of us are still dealing with heavy issues in our daily lives. So to move forward, we must address the conditions and issues of our past and present to create a new future. So let's talk about social determinants of health, which is defined by the CDC as conditions in the places where people live, learn, work, and play that affect a wide range of health and quality of life risks and outcomes. So think about the broad areas of our lives and how social determinants of health can touch them. That includes access to transportation, internet, food insecurity, and more. Where do we live? Are we living near toxic plants? That's also a social determinant of health as well. So all of these things are very important, and they can actually impact how much we are able to prioritize our health and wellness. So let's head to our panelists to discuss more about this topic, okay? I'm going to kick it to you first, Mr. Bellamy. Can you tell us about other areas of our lives where social determinants of health are a factor, but maybe we don't see it very clearly? Can you explain that and make it plain to us how social determinants of health are impacting our lives and our communities?
Well, Kemeny, you mentioned several social determinants of health, but when it comes to heart health, really having housing and home ownership has a direct correlation between how we work through our conditions as it is associated with hypertension. And so with that, there are some other social determinants of health that are a little more underlying. For instance, as we see in the community, voter suppression. Voter suppression puts you in a position where you're unable to talk about what's happening in your community and help drive policy. Policy in that term really starts to determine how monies will be spent to invest in the community, to develop policies in which people of color are able to reap the benefits of everything from health therapies straight through to access to housing. And so those are some of the social determinants, but we have to think in terms of the nuance and how policy can be developed and how that portion of aspects of voter suppression can affect that.
Wow, Mr. Bellamy, I did not expect you to bring up voter suppression, but you're absolutely right. When I think about the ways that our people have been organizing against voter suppression since time immemorial, at this point, it feels like, my goodness, that is such an important and key point, right? Because in some ways you're not able, or it's made more difficult for us to exercise, right, our right to vote, our agency, in order for these policies that do not live in the abstract. Right. They map onto our lives in very real and tangible ways. Thank you so much for lifting that up. And I'm actually glad I get to go to Bishop Reed about this, because we know the Black Church has been organizing against voter suppression. And so, Bishop Reed, how do we create healthy communities while still living in the reality of social determinants of health? Like, I'm sure you, as a leader and a pastor of faith, people come to you with questions all the time about dealing with challenges. So how exactly do we create healthy communities while still clearly seeing that the social determinants of health are a real reality for us?
I think, if I understand your question correctly, that I want to build on Dr. Bellamy's previous answer, and that is the social determinants of health that affect affect our community are really rooted and grounded in television, radio, and technology. And so until we are able to get the message out to our people that Black health is Black wealth, and until we are able to deprogram ourselves from the advertisements about certain products that destroy our health and certain policies that destroy our health, and take control of our collective minds and individual mindsets. As we do that, we'll develop healthy and healing communities. And finally, Dr. G is in Chicago. So she mentioned eat to live instead of living to eat. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad wrote a book entitled How to Eat to Live almost 60 to 70 years ago. Alvenia Fulton, who taught Dick Gregory how to become a vegetarian, was an AME who was a member of the church. And so we've got the principles and practices to be healthy communities. We've just got to practice what we know.
Yes, it's in us, right? And it's, as my pastor used to say, the gifts are in the house. They're in the house. We don't have to go too much further, to get the answers that we need and the healing that we need. Thank you so much for that, Bishop Reed. And now, audience members, please continue to use the chat. I'm so glad to see some of the things that you all are lifting up in the chat. We want to know your thoughts too about how how you've been seeing these social determinants work out in your own communities, but how is it that can we move toward healing even in the midst of those realities, okay? So I'm so glad that you all are using these chats. Let's see, we have somebody, if you don't mind, I'm gonna go a little off script. I wanna see what somebody's saying. The organization I work for establishes hubs throughout the state of Connecticut, whereby a community health worker assists individuals with community support resources to address their social determinants of health. That was Elvin Melendez. Thank you so much for that feedback. I'm really glad to hear the ways that people are mobilizing. And then talking about, Nikisha's here talking about thriving and not just surviving, feeding off of what I was saying. Yes, keep talking to us, please do. And as you're doing that, we are going to move to our next poll question. Are you all ready? But as you're chatting amongst each other, I want you to continue to think about what have you seen in your communities around healing and healthy lifestyles. Think about that and drop that in the chat, okay? As we move to our next poll question, number 2. Okay, now poll question number 2 is, can we heal forward? Can we heal forward? What say you? Can we heal forward? Let's see. Yes, I see Helen saying that food deserts remain an issue in many communities of color. Absolutely. And then Nikisha also lifted up a nice resource, Black Fatigue, How Racism Erodes the Mind, Body, and Spirit by Mary Frances Winters. Thank you for that, Nikisha. Okay.
Results are in for poll question 2. The question was, can we heal forward? 90% responded yes, 10% responded maybe, and 0% responded no. Thank you for your participation, and I'll pass it back to you, Kimini.
Yes, thank you so much. Now, can we heal forward? 90% of you say yes, 10% of you say maybe. And you know what? I like those numbers. And you know why? First of all, 90%, you're very hopeful, very encouraged. Maybe is, to me, signals, I think so. I think I need to understand more about what healing forward looks like and what you all mean by that. That's the way I'm taking that maybe. So why don't we continue to move forward and learn a little bit more about this, okay? And so So thank you so much, Janet. Now, Janet, Dr. Martin, we'd like your perspective on this, but let's talk about it from a community level. How do we begin to heal forward as a community?
So I think it starts, I believe it really starts from within. Okay. You have to fix you before you can help people, your family, your friends, and your community. So you have to start by saying, I'm going to take control of what I can take control of. Okay. And if nothing else, that's my health. One of the things I tell my clients when I do nutritional counseling, I say, your health destiny is determined by what you put at the end of your fork. Okay. So every day, every bite, what you do, if nothing else, you can control that. Okay. Once you start to get healthier and stronger from a physical perspective, from a mental perspective, from a spiritual perspective, then you'd be amazed as what you can do for the outside world by taking that information to your community, to your church. As a practicing AME here in Washington, D.C., we do webinars and seminars for our health ministry and telling people, look, everybody doesn't have to be a vegetarian, but you got to do what's right for your body. Your body is your temple. You have to do what's right. So you have to start by looking inside and saying, what type of exercise do I need to do? What type of foods do I need to eat? How do I control this stress of, the violence against African Americans, the voter suppression, the political system that we're in? You can't fight that every day. So you have to learn how to take control of what you can and manage your stress, because that will definitely affect your heart in terms of high blood pressure, in terms of stroke. And so it really is about starting to control from within.
Yeah, I like that. That's really good, Dr. Martin. I like the way that you're bringing in control what you can control. And we can actually control what's at the end of our fork to a degree, right? When we think about food deserts, which we've
Yes.
brought up and raised, but I think that's really powerful. And I think that's something that our audience members can take away from what's the next right thing you can do, right? What's the next small change that you can take? What are, like you mentioned, of course, the ways that African Americans continue to be discriminated against, and you see these police shootings. How can we begin to guard ourselves even from the never-ending news cycle? I think sometimes we have to be able to say, okay, enough is enough. This is as much as I can take in for today. Right. And so I think even how do we take control? How do we exercise self-control in a variety of different ways? Thank you for that, Dr. Martin. Now, Dr. G, I'd like to turn it to you. How do you see your healing work applied in the daily lives of your community?
Thank you for that question. It's been a little bit challenging, I must say, during the pandemic. But the way I approach the work in the faith community and beyond actually includes a number of things. So first, you have to show the community that you care.
That's
And
right.
so one of the ways in which we show the community that we care is that we have a food pantry. And in our food pantry, we try and be very intentional about offering some things that are healthy in the food pantry. So that directly impacts the community. We want to model the behaviors that we're looking to see in others. And so when we have events, we are intentional about what's on the menu. What are we planning to eat? And sometimes I have to stick my nose in and say, I don't think we should have that. We have to offer challenges, and I often offer challenges to folks around what it means to change. Then I use scripture. To reinforce from a spiritual perspective, mental perspective, and a physical perspective. So I can give you a great example. Yesterday, before my sermon, I invited in a counselor to talk a little bit about mental health, because we know that mental health impacts our community and it also impacts our health. So the better our mental health, the better we can work on our spiritual as well as our physical health. And of course, I use scriptures to help. And then the last thing I would say is partnering with other organizations. We partner with the University of Chicago, which is just down the street from us, and they help us to do better things into the community that will help the community.
Wow, Dr. G, thank you so much for that, because, it's hard to correct, or to come alongside people if they don't feel like you care for them, right? And you can't say that you care for somebody's soul if you don't care about their body. And people know. They know whether you really care for them and whether you really truly love them and are coming from a place of true care and want to see them doing well and are advocating and working for their flourishing, if you will. I love the communal spirit of this conversation, and of course the intergenerational nature of this conversation. It actually reminds me of the late Gwendolyn Brooks. I know you know something about Gwendolyn Brooks, Dr. G, over there in Chicago. And in her, just a little excerpt of her poem about Paul Robeson, she says in there, and it's one of my favorite poems from her, but she says that we are each other's harvest. We are each other's business. And we are each other's magnitude and bond. Okay. And I think it's really important for us to never lose sight of that. It's so easy to get caught up in this culture. It's me, it's all about me and mine and protecting mine. And of course, in a pandemic where we had to be isolated, right? This is pre-vaccines, and you're looking out for number one, if you will. But we are each other's magnitude and bond, and it's important for us to not lose sight of that. And that's something that is actually very, very true for us as a people. We don't want to lose that. We don't want to lose that spirit among us. So yeah, thank you for highlighting that, Dr. G. And of course, we want you all to continue to speak to us and talk to us. Before I even move it along, I want to see, let me check the chat and see what y'all are saying to us really quick. Let me see. Let's see. Oh yes, Robin says walking is good for the body and soul. Absolutely. Lauren is lifting up the importance of self-care. Yes, and if we could also encouraging our efforts as a way of loving ourselves. Oh my goodness, that's so good. Yeah, Tracy says this, that we ought to love ourselves and then we're able to love our neighbors well. Very, very true. Thank you all so much. Let's see. Let me highlight one more comment. Oh yes, some people are accustomed to eating traditionally fatty, greasy foods, sugary food, and we may be more effective in our efforts of healing the habits of our community by making it a family unit effort. I would call it a family affair, right? The greater the dynamic, the greater the support and accountability, the greater the result. Thank you so much for that, Tracy. Thank you for that feedback. Thank you all for talking to us. Keep on talking to us. Okay, so let's bring back the larger group for our next topic, okay? And so I know we've all heard the saying, it takes a village, right? Well, the same applies for our health. It takes a community to build health as wealth. So I know that through the National Hypertension Control Initiative, community businesses and organizations are strategically aligning with the American Heart Association to help improve blood pressure control. Now, Dr. Martin, can you tell us more about the work that the Links are doing with the American Heart Association and how others can create change in their communities or use the tools for their own health?
So absolutely. The Links have a number of different what we call facets, which are areas of focus. And one of them is our Health and Human Services facet. Underneath that facet, which I guide, we have the Heart Links program. The Heart Links program is about healthy hearts, about healthy eating, about healthy exercise. We take this information from our members as well as to our communities. We have what are called service areas. So we go out in the communities and we're doing projects, we're doing health fairs, we're giving seminars, we're having different classes. And so we work with the American Heart Association. We've had a long-standing partnership. And one of the things we're doing now, and I see someone in the chat had mentioned about walking and about exercise.
Yes.
The easiest, most inexpensive exercise is walking. You don't need any equipment. You just put a pair of shoes. Even if you can't go outside and walk because you're in a place where it's too cold, you can walk in your house, you can do your steps. And so earlier, our national president, Dr. Kimberly Jeffries Leonard, challenged us, the 16,000 Nation, to walk 75 million steps, as our 75th million anniversary is just around the corner.
Wow.
Fortunately, we surpassed that. And now she has challenged us to walk 1 billion steps. So we've reached out to all the members of our organization. We've reached out to members in our service areas and in our communities to say, here's how you do it. There are step trackers. If you can't walk, you can do exercises at home and turn them into steps. You can bike, you can do yoga. But the key is getting people involved to doing something that they like. Everybody doesn't have to run a marathon.
Yes.
Everybody doesn't have to swim. You can dance, you can do yoga, you can do Tai Chi. So we work with the community to get them involved in things that they like to help them get moving. And whatever that is, whether it's walking or whatever you love, and that will in turn help you get healthy.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Something really practical that everybody can do. Because I was, as you were talking about, you can lace up your sneakers and walk outside. I was thinking about people that are in neighborhoods where gun violence, though, is a factor. But you said they can even take steps, even in their own homes, and they can do some dancing. Now, does that include TikTok dances? Because that's all the rage these days. I'm just asking. I'm just
We'll take it.
Okay.
We'll take it.
Whatever we can get, right?
Whatever makes you feel good and whatever gets you moving.
There you go.
Yep.
Exactly. That is the point. What gets you moving? Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Martin. Now, Dr. G, what is your approach to creating change in the community from your seat, from your vantage point?
Well, let me start by saying that I don't think that you can change community until you first build community. And in many instances, we don't have community really built. And you can't influence others unless you build relationships with them and unless you build trust. So I really have I take a four-pronged approach, and I use this in the work that I do for the church as well as the work that I do in diversity. One is I look for what gifts are available in the community. What gifts do people have, and invite them into the work, right? So instead of focusing on, what we don't have, let's focus on what we do have. Bring those folks into the community, let them work alongside the church with the work that we're trying to do around health, building community, etc. We have to remain intentional about the relationships that we build. Because if we don't build broad relationships, we won't be able to have a broad impact. And when you build relationships with people, they're more likely to volunteer to come and join the work that you're doing. And when you get together, you have to declare what is possible, right? I'm a firm believer in let's say it and let's believe it, because I believe that what you say, and even the Bible supports this, that what comes out of your mouth is what will happen. We can speak those things that are not as though they were. And then we have to all use our social capital to influence and to help others. And that's really the approach that I use, whether I'm in church or out of church. Those four things are really important.
Yeah, and I love that you're like using their gifts, right, for the greater good. And people need to know that they are seen and that they're cared for. Like you feel good when somebody observes a gift that maybe you didn't know you had, or there's a different way that you can use your gifts in a different way that would serve others. That's really empowering for people to be the recipient of saying, I see your gifts, I see your talent. Had you considered, using that to help our community, to build our community, right? So we have a broad and deep reach. Thank you for that, Dr. G. And of course, I would love to hear from you, Bishop Reed. We spoke at the top of the hour about your heart episode. Do you mind telling us a little bit more about that and how you are managing your health? How are you healing forward?
I think first, Kimberly, that I had to realize that there was a book written in the early 90s by Terry McMillan entitled Black Pain. And until we as a community recognize that individually in the 21st century and as a community, we have been assaulted and our communities have been strategically destroyed. And when you destroy community, you weaken the self. And so Amos Wilson followed up on that, the late Amos Wilson, when he wrote The Psychology of Self-Hatred and Self-Defeat. So to answer your question, I had to come up with a strategy rooted and grounded in the collectivity of my spiritual tradition, Christianity, and look at the Bible from Genesis to Revelation. And I discovered practices, ancient practices tied to spirituality, like Daniel. Somebody mentioned Daniel in the chat, like the Daniel fast that most of us should be going into as we approach those of us who are Christian. And so I had to take control of my own health and see that a friend of mine has developed what he calls best self theology. And that's what happened. I developed the best self practices that have influenced the community through doing martial arts, through doing yoga, through walking a half an hour to 45 minutes a day, building up from 10 minutes to 45 minutes. So those are the things. Embodying health helps build community.
That's good, Bishop Reed. Yeah, good word about best self theology. Thank you. I didn't know I was doing that. See, I started doing some yoga. I still don't love yoga. I'm more of a strength training girl myself, but it's important and good for flexibility. And so I do about 10 minutes, 5 minutes a day. And I love to hear that you're incorporating martial arts. That is so awesome. I love how there are so many options. Y'all, we have so many options of ways that we can move our bodies in ways that maybe some things we may not love exactly, but maybe we can pick up something else that we do like. Maybe it's walking, maybe it's power walking for you. Maybe it is yoga for you. Maybe it's martial arts for you. Maybe it's dancing, including TikTok dancing. So the possibilities are endless, okay? And so I love that. Thank you so much for that, Bishop Reed. My goodness. And of course, bridging the gap between our faith, right, and our health. There is not a gap, but sometimes we tend to bifurcate these things, but they live together, right? We are embodied souls, and we can't forget that. And so, Mr. Bellamy, I'd love to hear from you. What would you say to someone who maybe somebody in our chat even now or in the audience who may not believe, maybe they don't believe that they have the ability to change their health journey? What would you say to that person who is taking all this in and is struggling, is feeling like they're stuck and they don't feel like they can do it? Can you talk to them and tell them about how they can change their health journey?
I would start, Kimani, by saying, what do you love? Who do you love? What do you like about your community? What do you like about your lives? And really start to talk about steps they can take that may be small steps. It's been mentioned a number of times about walking, engaging with people, whether it's in your church or whether it's in other social clubs in the community, and start to get that support that you need in order to celebrate the achievements. Those achievements may be small, but I've seen organizations and communities where small steps are celebrated, and you're able to really look at your health and celebrate that along with others and continue to grow in your health and wellness journey.
Yes, thank you so much for that, Mr. Bellamy. Oh my goodness. Well, what can we do as a community to inspire others around us on their health and wellness journey? Think about that. And I think that's something that we should always be thinking about continually, not just in this webinar, but and not just during Black History Month, but every day. How can we begin, to as the old adage says, each one teach one, right? And lift as we climb, if you will. Even though our journey, is not linear, we might, have stumble and fall a little bit here and there, but I want us to take away that question, be thinking about what can we do as a community to inspire others around us with regard to their health and wellness journey, okay? I want us to always be keeping that question top of mind. And thank you so much. Let me also, before I segue a bit, I want to be able to see what else you all are saying. We all have gifts. Yep. Oh, yes, this is Pamela. Our gifts help us to live out our purpose. That's right. Absolutely. And I love that somebody else lifted up that a social determinant of health is also inadequate education. Great point there as well. Let's see here. What else do we have here? Oh, thank you all. You all are chatty. I love it. And let me see if there's one more. Prioritize health, preventative health, pursue health, promote health, keep moving even at home. That was from Valerie. Thank you, Valerie. And yes, and we need more, I like this one too, mental health. We need more mental health support to assist in improving physical health. It was needed before COVID-19, and the need has grown exponentially since the onset of COVID-19. Oh my goodness, Tony, you are spot on with that. You're absolutely correct. We do need more mental health support assistance across the board in our country. Thank you for lifting that up. And so anyway, so thank you all so much for your questions. And before we close out, let's get some final words from our panelists. Can y'all send us away with a word of encouragement, if you will? So I'm going to ask the same question of everyone here today as we close out. Tell us in your mind, what does healing forward mean to you? And what are we healing from? Dr. G, I'm going to go to you first because you seem to always have a word.
Well, I'm supposed to have a word. So, well, let me just start with the last part of your question.
Sure.
What are we healing from? I think we're healing from stagnation, and I think we're healing from waiting for somebody else to do it for us.
Well,
now, what do I think healing forward means? As I was thinking about this, 5 things came to mind, and I just want to share those 5 things. 1, hold history as a mechanism for informing us, but we have to move from the place of focusing on everything that happened in our past in such a way that we get stuck there. Number 2, intentionally partnering with others can help you create a clear path forward. Number 3, we all have to be willing to roll up our sleeves and work collectively toward the end of making life better for all of us. Number 4, we have to build with all stakeholders at the table. And number 5 is a question that challenges all of us. What need exists in your community or in our community over which you or I or we have not offered our service? And when you put all those things together, for me, that's what it means to move, to heal forward, to get after those 5 things.
wow. Thank you so much for that comprehensive answer, Dr. G. I guess we good. No. You said it all. No. No, I love to hear from you. Dr. Martin, can you tell us in your mind what healing forward means to you and what are we healing from?
So I would say, again, answering the second part of the question first, we're healing from everyday life because it's just not the same for us between, again, the violence, the microaggression, the stress, just the stress of walking out the door every day. And it doesn't mean that we can't do it, because clearly we've been doing it for over 400 years, and it doesn't mean that we won't continue to do it. But we need some tools as individuals, and then Once you have those tools, you share them with your community, you share them with your workplace, your family, your friends, because that's the only way to move all of us forward, to heal all of us forward. I would emphasize that healing forward, again, has to start from within. I mean, this is it. From my perspective, you got one body, you're here one time. Okay, so this is what you have to work with. Your health is the only thing, at the end of the day, it's the only thing that matters, because you can't do anything without it. No matter how much money you have, no matter how much power, if you don't have your health, you have no wealth of any type. So, working on what you eat, on exercising, on managing your stress, going to the American Heart Association website to find out how to do, using their tools, checking in with your doctor, finding some sort of balance, so that even though everything won't be perfect, if you can find that balance to give you strength to move forward, to help the next person, then that's a big step.
Thank you for that, Dr. Martin. Thank you. And now, Mr. Bellamy, what would you say? How do we heal forward? And what does healing forward mean to you?
Well, I think part of it has been mentioned before, but really taking advantage of opportunities to receive assistance and care where people work, live, play, pray, and really using that as part of your plan with respect to improving your health. And so partnerships have been mentioned, but they're very important from the standpoint of lifting one another up. We grow together, not apart, not divested in other arenas, but we as Black people and people of color have grown collectively together when we come together. And that holds true for health.
Yes, that's absolutely true. Absolutely true. Last but not least, Bishop Reed, what does healing forward mean to you, and what are we healing from?
What are we healing from? Like Dr. Martin and Dr. Williams, I'll start there. We are healing from the after effects of believing in the myth of white supremacy. And how do we heal from it? The question to flip it around is, how do we turn Black pain into Black power? And I'll give you 6 quick words. One is forgive.
Come on.
The second is forget. And the third is let go. Then, dealing with alliteration, it's time for a reset, an individual reset and a community reset. And as we reset, we will renew. And as we reset and renew, there will be revival, as in the literal term, again, to have life, revivere from the French. And if we do those things and apply them individually and institutionally, we will heal forward and pass on a healing legacy to our children and our children's children.
Thank you. I love that generational transfer. Thank you for that 6-point cliff notes to a sermon. Thank you, Bishop Reed. Thank you so much. And of course, y'all, we have had quite an hour. I can't believe our time is up. It was so great to hear from these panelists, right? These hard truths and ideas from our panelists, and great ideas from our audience. Thank you all for your engagement. We thank you all for being open, honest, and willing to come along on this journey with us. Now, if you are looking for more resources to empower yourself, and I'm sure you are, please visit, visit heart.org/HBP control, or scan the QR code. You just turn on your camera and you just let your camera go around that QR code and it will take you to the website, okay? And I want to leave you with one final thing. It is the Get Down with Your Blood Pressure dance movement. Hey. Bet y'all didn't think I was gonna do it, but you didn't think I was gonna do it. So Today, we heard about the importance of knowing your numbers and monitoring your blood pressure as a part of your health routines. So start your journey by joining the Get Down with Your Blood Pressure dance movement. So check out the video we're running out as we exit, okay? Practice it at home, and you can post the video on Instagram and tag @American_heart, or you can go to the website heart.org/HBP control. Practice it and then get ready to share your version with the hashtag Get Down with Your BP to help raise awareness for blood pressure, self-monitoring. It's something we can do, we cannot do alone. We want to do this in community. Thank you all for joining us, and thank you to our amazing panelists.
Slip it, cuff it, check. Talk to doctor now and share it. Get it, slip it, cuff it, check. Talk to doctor now and share it. Gonna get it, gonna slip it, gonna cuff it. Check it, talk to doctor and share it. Gonna get it, gonna slip it, gonna